Hi there guys, welcome to this video. So what we talk about on this channel is natural bodybuilding, trying to bring also some honesty in the fitness industry and trying to spread awareness around steroids. But today it's more about training, and the topic is, are there any indispensable exercises? Because there is one thing that we see a lot in the gyms nowadays are PTs, who, for example, tell their clients to do certain programs, including exercise, which sometimes might not fit the person very well. This is what I wanted to bring out today. Are there any indispensable exercise? Should you do some exercise? Should popular exercise always be done? So exercise which you always see people doing in the gym. This is the topic of today. I think this is more for the beginners. I think that they will maybe learn from this. Intermediate and advanced people might already know this, but yet not always. So let's get into it, and I think you will learn something from it, I hope. The first thing I want to say is what are good and bad exercises. I want to define this in my experience, in my own opinion. I think a good exercise is an exercise which doesn't hurt you. So of course you might not do the form very well, maybe it's your fault if the exercise hurts you, but once you figured out how to do movement, if that still hurts you for no reason, no past injuries, then perhaps this is not an exercise which suits you very well. And this might be because of your body morphology. Some people might, for example, not be really made for deadlift because they've got long legs and they've got short arms, and it just makes it harder for them to pull. And for some other reasons, it might just not be a great exercise. So for these people, for example, we can't really say deadlift is a good exercise, and for some people, their morphology might just not be good on the long term if they practice this exercise too much with really heavy loads. So for me, the first factor of a good exercise is an exercise that doesn't hurt you, an exercise that you can practice and on the long term, and that you're sure has chances not to hurt you. So what is the second factor of a good exercise? In my opinion, it's an exercise which offers a good stretch. So for example, we could say that I've always seen people doing kickbacks with dumbbells. I don't think this is a great exercise because the stretch that it offers is actually not great. The tension is not great as well on the muscle. And so, for example, kickbacks on the cables might be better than kickbacks with dumbbells because there is more resistance, more stretch offered there. And if I had to choose, for example, between skull crushes on the triceps and kickbacks, I would definitely use skull crushes because there is more pressure, there is more stress, the stretch is pretty awesome. And so I would rather improve my weight with this type of exercise rather than the kickbacks. Good exercises might also be defined according to your strong and weak parts. So for example, on the bench press, if you're someone who's got absolutely massive triceps and big shoulders, and you want to work on your chest, then the bench press might not be the best exercise because your triceps is going to take the work over your chest with your shoulders. So this is what you could define as a good exercise, something which really fits your body morphology, and secondly, which actually offers a good stretch and you're not just pumping some air. So as I explained what good exercise were, bad exercise are just not following this rule. Some exercises offer just a bad stretch, some exercises are just not very good for articulations, some exercises might not just be very good for your body morphology. So we can understand that some exercises for some people will be good and for others will be bad, since we don't all have the same body morphology. Of course, I always advise to follow the basics in bodybuilding, so most of the basic exercises which offer a good stretch, which are pretty good exercises, will take you very far. If something hurts because of a specific exercise, because you realize that you have a certain body morphology, though you can maybe change it. Which brings me to say that there is no indispensable exercise that you should do. We can take the example of deadlift. If someone has got very long legs, short arms, and just not the right morphology for deadlift, and at some point, even on working on his form, flexibility, it doesn't work out for him, then he might want to change the exercise. And the issue nowadays is that sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, I think that this is quite covered in the fitness industry and it's not as much as an issue as other subjects, but we still see PTs, like I said, we give popular exercises just because they are popular, even though the person might not actually on the long term benefit from this exercise as much as other exercises. And so this is what I want to point out. It's not because you don't do deadlift, for example, that you won't grow your back. You can definitely replace it by other exercises which target the same areas and actually improve very well and get to a super advanced level, get absolutely massive without doing deadlift. You don't need to do deadlift because if, for example, you perform rows instead of deadlift all your bodybuilding journey, and your rows are the equivalent of whatever 3 plates rows with perfect form, then you will obviously be big. You'll have a great physique, so you don't need to do deadlift. One thing that I want to say is that obviously you might kind of suck at deadlift if you don't practice deadlift. So this is in my own experience. I used to start deadlift. I started deadlift actually quite late in my bodybuilding journey because I just didn't want to injure myself. I think deadlift was just not an exercise that I wanted really to specialize in, and so I did rows instead. I did pull-ups, and I improved a lot on these, and this offered me great results. And this is not because I didn't do deadlift that I didn't get results. But then when I wanted to start deadlift just to see how my deadlift was, basically my deadlift pretty much sucked, and my rows and deadlift were almost equivalent because I was just rowing all the time. So I was getting very good at it, but because I wasn't deadlifting much and I wasn't really comfortable with the form, then my rows and deadlift were almost at the same level. And when I started deadlifting a bit more, obviously the two kind of separated, and my deadlift was getting better. So that's to say that basically, as long as you have an exercise which is good for you, that is proven to offer you a good stretch, and that you can improve on with the weight, so gradually improve on the weights, on the reps, obviously just improving as a whole on the exercise, then you will just improve. Your muscles will get bigger if you improve on the exercise. If you practice strength work with hypertrophy work, this is what will happen. And so it really doesn't matter whether you're doing squats for legs, deadlift for back. You could definitely improve with other exercises which are good for building muscle, and you don't have to use these very popular exercises to grow them. Some exercises might not be for you, but still some people will want just to practice them because they like the exercise, and that can be quite frustrating if you like the movement. So for example, I said earlier that if you had massive triceps and big shoulders and you wanted to improve your chest on the bench press, well, this kind of suck. But then you can actually do variations, decline bench press, which might not make your shoulders and triceps participate as much as your chest. So this can be an example. Also, what you can do for rows, imagine your rows hurt you. Then yeah, there are seal rows. I made a video about seal rows. You can find alternatives basically which don't hurt you, target the same area, and I think this is something that you should do whenever you realize that your body morphology isn't great for a certain exercise, or that you just can't really do this exercise anymore. And so this brings me to say that how do you find a good exercise for yourself? If you just improve to an intermediate level, then you will actually start being able to learn about your body morphology. You will start building some muscles, and it will show you what your muscles are made of basically. So are they long, are they short? And you will be able to tell better what kind of exercises are good for you. So imagine, for example, if you want to do some incline curls with the biceps, then what happens is that some people have short biceps, other long biceps. And so if you're overstretching your short biceps on incline curls, this can be quite dangerous. So what you want to do is incline your bench, not as much as some people will do with long biceps. So you incline it a bit more up, and this will help you not overstretch your short biceps and actually be able to perform the inclined curls. And so these are little variations that you can do. Or simply, once you realize that your body morphology might not be adapted to a certain exercise, once you realize what your muscles are like, then you can simply totally change the exercise and replace it by something else. So now let's sum up this video. Are there any indispensable exercises? No, there is not. You can improve with any other exercise which suits you better than an exercise which is popular, which everyone talks about, and you shouldn't feel forced to do this exercise which you thought might be the incredible exercise bringing you the gains, etc. So there isn't, you shouldn't be forced to do an exercise. Secondly, if you want to do this exercise, despite the fact that it might not be a great exercise for you, then try to find some variations. You might be taking risk if you want to do an exercise which is not adapted to your body morphology and which actually hurts you. So if you carry on with it because you love it that much, then you're actually taking risk, and you have to take responsibility for carrying on with an exercise which hurts you. So if you're not someone who wants to take too much risk, then as I said, what I can advise you is to find good exercises for yourself. So exercises which don't hurt you for a start if you're a beginner, and then if you carry on as a beginner and you get to an intermediate level, if you realize that there is an exercise which actually hurts you, and that you realize that your body morphology might be better for another exercise, then I would advise you to change it to that exercise which might be better, and to basically stop the exercise which is not good for you that you've been doing all this time. This exercise that you will replace should always be an exercise which offers a good stretch, not an exercise which is pretty pointless like kickbacks, as I said, with a dumbbell which doesn't offer any sort of resistance, so doesn't offer any sort of stretch. It should obviously be an exercise where you can scale up the weight to infinity, basically. So not an exercise where you will be stuck at some point and you will never be able to put on more weight, so basically improving on the exercise. Last thing with the good exercise, which has usually a good stretch, I would advise you to still be careful the range of motion that you actually can go to. So for people who do squats, for example, sometimes they really go too low, and they go low because the weight that they carry allows them to overstretch, and so they can get injured. So make sure that while the exercise is good, offers a good stretch, don't try to go over the range of motion that you can actually go to, because you will probably start injuring yourself. So that was my advice, guys, for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And also I wanted to say that this is a pretty small channel, so what you can do is actually leave comments and ask questions. If you have questions, I will really try to answer you. I think this is something great because this is a small channel. I can actually help people case by case. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a comment. If you have a question, feel free to leave a comment. And also the YouTube thing, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. And I will see you next time.